Reimagine. Isn't that a great word? During the month of July, we're inviting you to reimagine. Is there something in your life that you hope will be different when this time of quarantine is over? You know, a couple weeks ago, I heard somebody use the phrase reimagining as we reopen. They were talking about their business and how they were getting to resume some of their activities now that the shutdown was ending for them. But they didn't want to just go back to business as usual because they had learned some things while they had been shut down. You know, when they had stopped long enough and pushed pause and were able to sit and to wonder and to think, they realized that there were some ways where they had gotten off track in the past, or some places where their priorities really needed to be re-examined. And as they sat and as they gave that some thought, they realized that there were ways, they had a new vision for who and what they and how they wanted to be when the quarantine was over. I've started calling them pandemic epiphanies. You know, maybe you've had them, these thoughts about how your life might be different when this time of pandemic is over. Things you've learned in these past weeks and months about who and what God is trying to show you. Ways that life has gotten off track, or maybe ways that the tail has been wagging the dog, either in your relationships or your activities, things that maybe you thought were impossible to change. But you've been feeling this nudge that maybe change would really be more life-giving. Reimagining as we reopen. You know, some of you have shared some of these pandemic epiphanies that you've had with me. You know, what you've learned about being able to spend time sitting around the table at dinner and the rich conversations that you have. Or maybe it's, you know, watching your kids out in the backyard just playing, you know, no structure, no organized activities, just unstructured play, and they're having a blast. You know, some of you, it's been a struggle not being able to work and or not working the way you're used to, and wondering about, you know, who you are when you can't do the things that you do. Some of you have found a real rhythm that you didn't have before that allows you this balance of prayer and walking and visiting with your neighbors across the driveway. For some of you, you've gotten into a routine of calling and checking on people, and you know, what a richness that has added to your life. And for some, when you finally got time to sit and be quiet, you realize, you know, there's some things about your personality or just your thoughts and behaviors that maybe need to be addressed a little bit. You know, some of them are such simple things, but often when life is moving at 100 miles an hour, we just don't even have time to think about them, to think about how we might change them, or to think about how maybe the tail is wagging the dog. But, you know, sometimes it's these simple things that God wants to change. It can be the simplest of course corrections that just set us off on a completely different and beautiful path. So what might God be calling you to be different? You know, we didn't choose this pandemic, and for some of us, we have just been waiting for it to be over, to get back to a normal routine, good or bad, whatever normal might look like. And yet, I bet you still have a sense, like I do, that God is trying to show me something, that I haven't been slowed down for nothing. There's something that God wants me to see, and whether He wants to teach you something about your relationships and how you show up for other people, or your schedule and what you make time for or don't make time for, or the gap between what we say is important and what we give ourselves to. You know, we're all there in one way or another. COVID-19 has been an unwelcome guest these past few months, and the disruption and the illness and the losses have been devastating for many people. And at the same time, it has given us this amazingly unique opportunity to step back from the day-to-day typical routine of our life and to to reflect, and hopefully to choose differently. So how will you be different? I want to help you to ask and answer that question, and not just to answer it, but to figure out a way to live it out, to turn those aha moments that you've had and put them into action. Because that's the hard part, isn't it? A lot of times we have glimpses about how we think life could be different, or how we should make it different, whether for us or for our family, but actually doing it, that's the hard part. And so I want to invite you to Reimagine. It's a 5-day Reimagine challenge. A time to be intentional about capturing those pandemic epiphanies that you've had, and to flesh out those aha moments, and to create a plan to help you to live them out, to discern a path forward that God has been trying to show you, and to start walking in a new way. So the 5-day Reimagine challenge is July 27th to the 31st. You might be asking, why a 5-day challenge? Is there going to be something miraculously different at the end of 5 days? Well, no, I doubt it. Maybe, but I doubt it. But 5 days is enough time to really be intentional and thoughtful and prayerful, and to really go about trying to hear what it is that God is trying to show you. What does God want different in your life? And then to map out a realistic plan that will help to make it stick. So each day during the challenge, if you participate, you'll get an email with a short video in it, 5 to 7 minutes, on a different step in the process. And, we'll talk about things like, how do we quiet the noise just for a little while so that we're able to hear God? How do we get those pandemic epiphanies out of our head and onto paper? And then how do we really figure out which is the one that we need to focus on right now? We'll talk about nailing down the why. Why are we doing this? If willpower could get us all the way there, everybody's New Year's resolutions would be done, and life would be different. But it's challenging, and we really need to look at, why is this important? Why does it matter? Why is it worth investing in, both to us and to God and to the kingdom? And then we'll design the action. What are the actual concrete things that we're going to do? And what is that going to look like? And then we'll prepare for the obstacles in advance. I call it packing the gym bag the night before. We know things are coming. We know resistance is out there. So there's some things that have kept us from doing this before. So what's going to be different, and how are we going to be ready for that? We're going to have a closed Facebook group so that there's a place where we can encourage and support one another. And I'm not going to lie. It's going to require some intentionality and some effort from each of us to do this, but we have this window of opportunity before the chaos and pace of life just kicks up again. And I don't want to look back and go, there were some things I thought about that they're kind of just a vague memory now of something that I knew was important, but didn't try to make it happen. Because God is at work. He's at work in the world. He's at work in you. He's at work in me. And he's at work during this pandemic. And how are we going to hear him? And how are we going to follow? There's something that he wants to transform in your life. It may be so simple. But again, it sometimes is those simple things, those little course corrections, that just put us on a whole different path of grace and meaning. Habits are not easy to change or to start. But over the 5 days, we'll take it step by step together. And I believe if God is calling you to this, you can do it. So let's reimagine together.